Welcome to Boston Community Health. I'm Dr. Elias Thorne. Why do so many American men never manage to cross the crucial age 80 milestone? Widespread individuals mistakenly assume that losing their lives stems from pure fate, bad luck, or inherited genetic factors. However, the clinical reality of geriatric medicine exposes a completely different truth. Today, I will expose the 5 hidden metabolic and lifestyle traps silently destroying your body following your retirement. If you maintain persistence and stay with me until the very end of this video, a simple medical routine to shield your vasculature and reverse cellular exhaustion will become entirely clear today. Rapid physical decline and the sudden drop in your baseline health during your later years do not represent an accidental biological law. It is strictly dictated by the unconscious habits men pick up immediately after leaving their offices. Trap number 5 targets the fundamental shift in your personal drinking behavior following retirement. During your active working decades, consuming a drink post-hours functioned effectively as a reward to release job pressure, a brief social ritual shared with colleagues before returning home. However, upon entering retirement, the chronological days pass without any rigid schedules waiting for you. Alcohol suddenly transitions into a tool to escape boredom, loneliness, or an empty afternoon. Sitting isolated in your recliner and consuming 3 to 4 beers day after day represents a critical biological alarm signal inside your systemic network. Clinically, utilizing alcohol on a daily basis aggressively triggers chronic systemic inflammation, silently skyrocketing lipid metrics while accelerating the aging and hardening of your endothelial linings. When you numb your central nervous system with chemical toxins to suppress an empty mind, your physiology never gains a true opportunity to rest and repair. Analyze the case of Robert, a 68-year-old patient living in Phoenix, Arizona, who allowed his nightly post-retirement drinking habit to push his hepatic enzymes over twice the normal range without displaying a single external symptom until checkup. The clinical management option for Robert's problem incorporated a conscious adjustment strategy rather than extreme prohibition. Please click like, subscribe to Boston Community Health, and comment your age right now. I instructed Robert to strictly separate active drinking days from non-drinking days within his weekly layout. When consuming, transform it into a small mindful enjoyment under minimal volumes instead of drinking automatically to kill time. Following 3 months of adhering to this biological discipline, Robert's liver numbers returned to perfect baselines. His body felt lighter, completely lifting the destructive strain over his carotid arterial pathways supplying his brain. Trap number 4 delivers the severe degradation of your deep sleep architecture, a clinical state where you remain in bed for hours, yet your muscle fibers and brain cells fail to experience true recovery. During uninterrupted deep sleep, your brain's specialized lymphatic system operates intensely like a cleanup crew, activating the physiological process to flush out toxic amyloid beta accumulations. If your sleep quality suffers chronic fragmentation, this vital intracranial cleansing process remains unfinished night after night, heavily accelerating white matter degradation and vascular dementia syndromes. More dangerously, sleeping below 6 hours nightly causes your brain to assume an emergency survival state, triggering your adrenal glands to continuously secrete stress cortisol hormones into circulation. When cortisol floods your vasculature for prolonged stretches, it constricts microvessels, skyrockets systemic blood pressure, and hardens the endothelium, serving as the primary trigger driving nocturnal embolic stroke events. Analyze the case of Frank, a 71-year-old patient living in Chicago, Illinois, who frequently awoke during midnight hours post-retirement, picking up the hazardous habit of scrolling his phone in the dark. His heart raced consistently, and his blood pressure began to climb. The lifestyle management option I designed for Frank omitted addictive sedative prescriptions, incorporating 2 behavioral adjustments. First, implement a 25-minute daytime eye-closing rest protocol. Second, establish a 10-minute quiet resting routine before bed, blocking all digital information to calm his neural alarms, allowing deeper sleep to return naturally. Trap number 3 incorporates the chronic stress surge spraying across your post-retirement decades. Many men grew up under an old-school mindset dictating that a true man must always tough it out, never complain, and block any external displays of physical weakness. However, the sheer stress during your working years originated from overloading schedules, whereas post-retirement stress stems from an empty routine, a total loss of life purpose, and assuming you no longer matter to society. This chronic emptiness possesses no shift endings or project deadlines, operating silently to oppress your nervous system daily. This invisible emotional stress continuously triggers hepatic gluconeogenesis, accelerating plaque buildup inside carotid pathways. Analyze the case of David, a 70-year-old patient living in Dallas, Texas, who suffered from unexplainable full body aches post-retirement, driven by the feeling that society had quietly moved on without him. The actionable solution I presented to David required him to establish and execute one tiny mechanical goal every week, starting simply with clearing weeds from his backyard. Finishing this task stimulated natural dopamine, filled his psychological void, and silenced toxic cortisol, allowing his body to heal. Trap number 2 is exceptionally devastating, yet routinely minimized by most older men. Chronic social isolation. Many tell themselves they prefer being alone and feel exhausted by complicated relationships. However, under the lens of academic medicine, loneliness is clinically proven to damage your endothelial lining as severely as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The United States Surgeon General has issued a critical warning designating social isolation as a serious public health crisis, linked directly to skyrocketing risks of heart attacks, neurodegenerative dementia, and severe embolic strokes. Why does social loneliness present such high biological toxicity? Since ancient eras, humans survived inside structured groups. Therefore, when your brain perceives you are completely isolated, it interprets this state as an acute survival threat. Your immune system becomes heavily compromised and endothelial inflammatory responses explode, causing cholesterol deposition velocities to multiply. Going through chronological days without speaking to anyone besides a spouse, or living inside absolute silence, causes your neural pathways to atrophy while eroding your cerebral vasculature, pushing you closer to a hospital bed. Our clinical management option for isolation requires no heavy emotional bonding, incorporating a lifestyle protocol establishing one small contact point with the world weekly. Please click like, subscribe to Boston Community Health, and leave a comment sharing your story below. Actively greet a cashier at your local store, or call an old friend. Analyze George, a 75-year-old patient in Tampa, Florida, who miraculously reduced his blood pressure prescriptions after 6 months of joining a senior chess group, where shared laughter successfully awakened his vascular cells. Trap number 1. The absolute peak of daily vascular destruction is the habit of remaining sedentary for prolonged stretches on your sofa or bed. Many adults assuming this habit is harmless are mistaken. Under modern medicine, excessive sitting is explicitly defined as the new smoking of this century. Your lower extremity muscle masses make up 70% of your entire body muscle architecture, functioning as a massive hydraulic pump pushing venous blood volume back to your heart. When you remain motionless and glued to a chair, this mechanical pumping system completely shuts down, collapsing your metabolic framework. When you remain glued to your sofa for prolonged hours, the intense mechanical compression over the back of your thighs suffocates major arteries, causing circulatory velocity to drop drastically. Blood volume fails to return smoothly to your heart, forcing the cardiac muscle to contract with double the force to maintain systemic pressure profiles. The direct consequence is a continuous daytime blood pressure escalation eroding your endothelium. Concurrently, because large lower extremity muscle groups are completely immobilized, the cellular consumption of glucose molecules is blocked, driving volatile post-meal blood sugar spikes while accelerating deep insulin resistance that aggressively destroys your cardiovascular network. A massive clinical study published within the academic journal Annals of Internal Medicine exposed an incredibly frightening truth of maintaining 1 hour of regular morning exercise fails to neutralize your premature mortality risks if the rest of your chronological hours are spent sitting completely motionless. This represents a hidden medical pitfall causing many older men to remain dangerously passive, assuming their early morning walks grant them the right to occupy a recliner for the next 10 hours. When excessive sitting systematically combines with social isolation and alcohol abuse, your body declines rapidly, transforming basic physical movement into a heady physical burden. Our home intervention protocol to effectively shatter this dangerous spiral requires 0 expensive gym memberships or specialized athletic footwear. All you need involves implementing one tiny mechanical habit. Analyze the case of Walter, a 73-year-old patient from Tennessee who once submissively lived with chronic back pain and severe insomnia driven by sitting in front of a television all day. I prescribed Walter a simple operational routine: firmly stand up from his chair the absolute moment a commercial break appears on screen. During those brief minutes, he simply marched in place and executed exactly 5 gentle squats to reactivate his calf muscle pumps. Advanced biological research confirms that human muscle cells never betray you simply due to your chronological age, retaining their baseline capacity to synthesize and expand at any stage of lifespan provided they receive regular mechanical stimulation. Following 6 months of persistently standing during commercial breaks, Walter's chronic back pain completely vanished, allowing him to confidently pack a backpack and undertake long-distance day trips with family, showcasing an energized face. Marching and performing calf raises every 30 minutes forces your major muscle masses to absorb excess glucose from circulation, successfully shielding your carotid arterial highways. Now, let us bring all of today's vital medical insights together into a powerful protective action from afar. We have thoroughly exposed the true biological nature of these 5 hidden post-retirement traps, encompassing drinking unconsciously to escape boredom, chronic sleep fragmentation accumulating toxic amyloid beta, invisible stress surges driven by total loss of life purpose, long-term social isolation damaging your endothelium as severely as 15 cigarettes, and remaining sedentary for hours while gluing yourself to a sofa, shutting down your lower leg muscle pumps. This represents a concerning clinical landscape, yet it remains fully within your control. Bring all of today's vital medical insights together, this synchronized routine of separating drinking days, implementing short resting cycles, and establishing weekly goals functions as your optimal prevention framework. Firmly standing up to activate your lower extremity muscles every 30 minutes represents the core weapon to clear glucose, lower systemic pressure, and perfectly preserve your physical freedom across lifespan. However, to permanently master your health autonomy and cross the age 80 milestone vigorously, geriatric medicine strongly recommends coordinating these 5 natural habits with an advanced screening process inside authorized hospitals. Standard generic medical checkups remain completely blind to localized threats expanding inside your vessel walls. To successfully transform today's complex scientific knowledge into a practical protective weapon, I want to provide a concise clinical communication protocol consisting of 3 strategic queries to discuss directly with your healthcare provider during your next clinic appointment. Refusing to surrender your biological destiny. Strategic query number 1 you strictly need to present to your physician is based on my middle-aged physical status, current insulin resistance, and post-retirement lifestyle. What are the exact target blood pressure metrics and optimal hemoglobin A1C thresholds I must maintain during home logging? This crucial query forces the clinical conversation toward establishing a clear biological milestone, completely eliminating vague guesswork, allowing you to accurately evaluate the real-world efficiency of your daily lower limb movements to shield your endothelium, preventing thrombus aggregation right from the foundation. Strategic query number 2 you strictly must discuss during your clinic appointment is: given my structural vascular risks driven by chronic post-retirement metabolic traps, am I an appropriate candidate to undergo a duplex carotid ultrasound behind the neck and a brain MRI scan to evaluate for silent lacunar infarcts? This question advances your medical dialogue into specialized neuroimaging dimensions, completely exposing and detailing underlying fragile atherosclerotic plaques expanding inside your skull before devastating physical complications erupt and ruthlessly strip away your mental clarity. Strategic query number 3 you strictly need to ask to finalize your protective shield over your nervous system is: do I require an overnight 24-hour Holter monitor evaluation right at home to completely rule out paroxysmal atrial fibrillation risks driven by chronic sleep fragmentation? Presenting this complete trio of strategic queries demonstrates that you represent a highly informed individual possessing profound wisdom during your personal journey to safeguard your physical freedom and cognitive clarity across lives. And maintaining peak physical vitality regardless of chronological time. Share this educational video link with the people you care about most: a spouse living alongside you, an aging parent, or a sibling over middle age who needs this vital screening data. The individuals who are at the highest statistical risk of facing this post-retirement vascular storm driven by excessive sitting and isolation will likely never search for these clinical studies online. Your small act of digital sharing today might become the exact reason someone's vascular system and cerebral white matter are saved. perfectly preserving their independent living. Write down these 5 natural methods and 3 strategic questions on a physical sheet or store them inside your phone app to serve as your permanent roadmap. Many individuals dangerously delay lifestyle modifications, waiting until severe vascular complications like cerebral strokes or heart attacks erupt before panicking and seeking heavy chemical prescriptions. This represents vascular suicide. The true clinical power to shield your vascular lumen resides entirely inside your consistent daily